Mark Skaar on the Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox. It is my extreme pleasure to bring in the Fuzz Lord himself, Scott Holliday from Rival Sons. Scott, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Thank you, Mark. It is even more my extreme pleasure to be here on the show.
Aw. Well, how's the tour going?
Great. It's fun. We put our record out right in the middle of it. Darkfighter just came out, so it's been fun kind of playing songs at the first half of the tour that nobody had really heard yet, except for a few of them. And it's been fun to, release the record and then play the same songs after people have heard them. Great.
Congratulations on Darkfighter. It's a great record.
Thank you very much.
Produced by Dave Cobb. You've been with him pretty much the entire time, and I don't think he really needs any introduction, but he does wonderful work for you guys.
He's a great friend, and we've done every record with him. It's been a long journey with him and a lot of learning and kind of meshing together and learning each other's nuances and how to work together better and better.
You've been quoted as saying, as this album sounds like a band, your band, and not your influences anymore. It's just the natural maturation of, you said, getting to albums 8 and 9.
Yeah, I think it's not that you can't hear influence in our playing. I think that's just going to be age-old forever. You always are going to hear influences in different players, but it just feels really natural and like a real progression and step forward for the band.
Talking with Scott Holliday from the Rival Sons. Who did the album artwork?
That album was actually done by Martin Whitson, who did the last two covers as well.
And you've done several music videos. Let's talk about Nobody Wants to Die.
Sure. What would you like to know?
A little bit about the storyboard, maybe, for these videos this time out.
We didn't have a storyboard across the three videos, as it could seem, possibly. But our first single, Nobody Wants to Die, or when it was about to drop, we received a bunch of submissions from producers and different directors, and different treatments, and nothing really stuck. Everything we saw looked really cookie-cutter, really typical. Music video, the art of the music video, especially with rock bands, it's just not being highlighted these days. And you can tell with the budgets record labels are giving them too. So we didn't like what we were getting shopped, and both me and Jay just had a different idea. We had the same idea, really, that we wanted to do for that song. So we kind of traded stuff back and forth in hotel rooms and came up with that treatment that ended up being that video.
Talking with Scott Holliday from Rival Sons. Talk to me about Jay Buchanan, his wonderful singing, his soulful singing that just makes you feel it. It's just like so few bands. You guys have soul in spades.
Pretty good. It's all right. He's in here standing next to me. You can't make me talk about him while he's standing right next to me. Me and Jay have worked together for a long, long time now. What can I say? He's my right-hand man. I love him. He's fantastic.
I tell you, Scott, my favorite songs on this record so far are Bird in the Hand. I just love the groove on that.
Yeah, man. That shuffle is fantastic that Miley's laying down. I have an interesting factoid for your show that I talked about that song. That main groove, that really dirgy groove, that's mainly what we had, the chorus and that dirgy groove. That was really what we recorded. We took all that stuff home, and we actually co-produced this record with Dave Cobb. So there was a lot of work we did at home, a lot of work I did out of my own studio, a lot of guitars tracked, a lot of things kind of organized at home. And on that song in particular, I felt like the song was good, and I thought there was something there, but it was missing like a little ribbon of color that I like to wrap into a lot of our songs, and that ended up being the intro you hear and the re-intro into the second chorus and the bridge. So I actually ended up cutting all that into the song and creating the whole bit from my own studio at home.
Hooks galore on that one. Guillotine is another favorite.
Yeah, really happy with that. That was First Rip is kind of where that started and was something I had very early. I think everyone's fantastic on it. Jay came up with that chorus also while we were in the studio, and I think it really is a keystone to the downward spiral that, in the arc of the story. The feeling of the dark kind of enveloping us.
Something else I really love, I love a ton of your work, but going back to Feral Roots, I need to talk about Imperial Joy and the gospel tinges that are in that song. I just adore that song.
I love that. Nobody ever wants to talk about that song. Lost in the Shuffle. That song's really close to my own heart. All that music that I came up with, and it was very special to me and felt like a really inspired movement. That chorus, those very fuzzy, dirgy verses, but mainly that big, wide-open chorus with that big 7 chord in it, and I was really excited about it, and I just loved what Jay came up with for it. When we laid it down, I just felt like it really lifted up that song in a really beautiful way. I think we're going to bring that song back into the live show. Everybody's been kind of talking about playing it. We've been hitting around at it. I think it's going to come back.
See, I brought it up, so now you must.
I like that. That's cool. Thank you.
We're talking to Scott Holiday from Rival Sons, and you've alluded to it. There's not one, but 2 records that were put together during the pandemic. This one, of course, is called Darkfighter. In the fall, we're going to have Lightbringer. Can you give us a little preview about that?
We didn't intend for them to be 2 parts. I'll tell you that initially. They were the group of songs that we wrote, and we could feel a story arc, I think, as we were writing, me and Jay, and we got to the end, and to really put the whole cinematic story arc together, these were the songs that were left, but it would have really been a big bite, I think, not only for us, but more importantly for the listener. It would have been a very long record, and that's not really what we wanted to do at all. When we finally could listen to it all together, we could see this feels like part 1, and you can see where the story arc breaks off. This feels like part 2. And I think everyone's really going to love this second part. I think it's going to be something a little bit different. We really pushed ourselves. There's several very important pieces on that record that we're very proud of.
Is it sort of like Led Zeppelin 3?
In which way?
Well, maybe because the title would lean toward maybe mellower acoustic pieces in places. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah. No. There's light and shade. There's light and shade on both.
Sure.
You're not getting only dirty, darker themed songs on Darkfighter, and that doesn't mean that it's not going to be all like fun and bright, lighter stuff that happens on Lightbringer. They're both complete albums, and there's going to be light and shade with both. We didn't separate them that much sonically like that, because it just didn't feel right. Like I said, we didn't intend that, and that's not how the story arc moved. But there's a very particular Led Zepp-ism, maybe not in the sound, but in the titling of some things, and that's all I'll say. There'll be a hint there, and you can just pick up on that when it comes out.
Ooh, a Scott Holiday tease.
Yeah, it's fun, right? Let's have fun with it that way. Let's not just give everything away.
Exactly, and I think you'll be touring Europe when that record releases, but is there a plan, Scott, to do another run in the States after that record comes out?
Absolutely. The tour we're on is predominantly Northeast, East Coast. It's an East Coast to the middle, and we will be doing in 24. We'll be doing West Coast over to the middle.
So stay tuned for that. Going to be a busy year or 2 for you guys. And the nice thing about back-to-back records like this in the same year is you can stay on the road and do your thing, which is where you excel.
Yeah, I mean, you make these songs to perform them. That's really the idea, to create a moment with audiences all around the world. And it's fun to create studio albums, but it's imperative that we share that exchange, those nights where we're together, and the songs kind of evolve and take on their own new life, even beyond what we wrote in the studio or we could have hoped for. Once we get in front of an audience and the audience makes them their own, something different happens with them.
Scott, if people want to keep up to date on you and Rival Sons, let's tell them how they can do that.
We have everything everywhere. We have all the social media outlets. We have the .com. We have an app. The app is a good one. Everybody go get the app.
I have it.
That's gonna be the most centralized, get everything on that one spot. But other than that, the Instagrams and Twitters and TikToks and Facebooks and the yada yada bing bang.
Scott, thank you so much for your time. Continue all the best to my favorite rock and roll band, Rival Sons.
Hey, Mark, thank you for having me, and a big thank you to everybody out there listening. Right on.
For Scott Holiday of Rival Sons, I'm Mark Skaar on the Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox.